Frankenstein, vampires, and werewolves. Oh dear. The Munsters debuted during a period of societal turmoil, so sitcoms didn't delve into themes of death or conflict. We sought distraction from the horrors of the Vietnam War. This led to a wave of shows featuring a fantastical world populated by genies, witches, Martians, monsters, and more. But this peculiar family grapples with everyday challenges and sees themselves as ordinary middle class, adding relevance to the tensions with neighbors and strangers for anyone who has ever felt like an outsider. It was the perfect show for the year 1964. Although it only aired for 2 seasons, over 50 years later, it remains a cherished favorite that many still fondly reminisce about today. So, today, let's take a look back at the ensemble of the Munsters to discover what they pursued after shedding their makeup. Without further delay, let's get started. Ivon Dar Carlo as Lily Munster. The head of the household managed the home and served as the perfect, serious counterpart to Herman's comedic antics. Lily Munster portrayed a vampire, yet she exuded elegance and grace on screen. This was because she already had a successful career in movies. Following the completion of the pilot episode, CBS executives insisted on replacing the actress portraying Lily Munster, and Dar Carlo was chosen for her impeccable comedic timing, albeit accompanied by a hint of prima donna behavior. Allegedly, Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis eventually had a conversation with Dar Carlo, after which she became more cooperative. Dar Carlo began her Hollywood journey in 1941, and after several years of uncredited roles, she landed a breakthrough role in the 1945 film Salome, where she danced. She quickly rose to stardom, with one of her most notable roles being Sephora in Cecil B. DeMille's epic The Ten Commandments. She reprised her role as Lily in the feature film Munster, Go Home in 1966 and in the television movie The Munsters' Revenge in 1981. Her autobiography, titled Ivon, was released in 1987 and became a bestseller. In 1950, Dar Carlo bought an 11-room ranch house on 5.5 acres of wooded land on Coldwater Canyon Drive in Studio City, Los Angeles, above Beverly Hills. She described it as her dream home, and worked with an architect to design an English-style dining room with paneling and stained glass windows. Additionally, she constructed stables for her horses and a large swimming pool. She sold the property in 1975 and moved to a ranch in the Santa Ynez Valley near Solvang, California in 1981. Dar Carlo faced health challenges in her later years, experiencing a stroke in 1998. Sadly, she passed away in January 2007 due to heart failure. Nevertheless, her remarkable body of work ensures that her legacy will endure. Fred Gwynne as Herman Munster. The leader of the family might seem intimidating, but he possessed a childlike purity and a heart filled with kindness, offering some of the most valuable advice one could receive. Prior to venturing into acting, Gwynne served in the U.S. Navy as a radio man on a submarine chaser. Following the war, he enrolled at Harvard, where he belonged to the Fly Club, sang in an a cappella group, and served as a cartoonist for the Harvard Lampoon, eventually rising to become its president, all while participating in theatrical productions. Gwynne made his debut television appearance in 1952 on the Philco television Playhouse, and although he had a memorable guest appearance on the Phil Silvers show in 1955, his breakthrough didn't come until Car 54, Where Are You? In 1961. Then came the opportunity to don the foam rubber padding of Herman Munster. Due to excessive sweating in the suit, he consumed copious amounts of lemonade, yet still experienced significant weight loss during the show. Besides his role in The Munsters, one of his notable performances was in the 1989 film Pet Sematary. Who could forget his comedic banter with Joe Pesci when Fred portrayed the judge in My Cousin Vinny? Beyond acting, he was also a professional singer, a painter, and an author and illustrator of children's books. Unfortunately, Gwynn passed away from complications of pancreatic cancer in 1993, just 8 days shy of his 67th birthday. One cherished memory is of Herman Munster imparting invaluable life lessons to his son, Eddie, Al Lewis, as Grandpa. Al Lewis is perhaps most renowned for his portrayal of the iconic character resembling Count Dracula, affectionately dubbed Grandpa. He brought boundless hilarity to the Munsters, his laughter perfectly capturing the essence of a mad scientist. Additionally, he had a rich association with vampires, with his earliest credits dating back to 1957's Lust of the Vampire. Prior to joining forces with Herman Munster, although not at 1313 Mockingbird Lane, Lewis secured a recurring role in the television series Naked City in 1959. His partnership with Fred Gwynne commenced in Car 54, Where Are You?, where he portrayed Officer Leo Schnauzer. Apart from his success on The Munsters, he delivered a memorable performance as a judge in the comedy Used Cars, led by Kurt Russell. Lewis remained active in his career until the age of 79, balancing his acting pursuits with ventures such as owning a restaurant, running for political office, and even working as a radio broadcaster. In 1956, Lewis tied the knot with Marge Domowitz, with whom he shared 3 sons, Dave, Ted, and Paul. However, the marriage ended in divorce in 1977. He subsequently married actress Karen Ingenthron in 1984, and they remained happily married until his passing. During his final years, he resided on Roosevelt Island in New York City. In 2003, Lewis underwent angioplasty, which led to complications necessitating emergency bypass surgery. Unfortunately, this resulted in the amputation of his right leg below the knee, as well as all the toes on his left foot. He peacefully passed away in February 2006 at the age of 82 due to natural causes. Following his cremation, his ashes were reportedly placed in his favorite cigar box. Grandpa Munster ensured that things remained intriguing right until the very end. Beverly Owen as Marilyn Munster. Beverly Owen portrayed Marilyn in the initial 13 episodes. Initially skeptical about the show's potential due to its unconventional premise, she eventually departed the sitcom to marry John Stone, anticipating it to be a short-lived endeavor. Ironically, Owen's marriage to Stone ended in divorce a decade later, and she never achieved a level of success comparable to the Munsters. Her most notable non-Munsters role was in the 1964 film Bullet for a Bad Man, starring Audie Murphy. Subsequently, she embarked on a different path, pursuing studies in early American history. Owen left the Munsters after 13 episodes to wed John Stone, a future writer and producer for Sesame Street in Newfane, Vermont, on June 27, 1964. Their marriage lasted until 1974, during which they had 2 daughters, Polly and Kate. Following her divorce in 1974, she continued her academic pursuits in early American history, eventually earning a master's degree in 1989. Preferring a life away from the limelight, Owen's passing from ovarian cancer in 2019 came as a shock to many. Butch Patrick, known for his role as Eddie Munster, fondly remarked, "What a sweet soul. I had the biggest crush on her." Paul Lynde as Dr. Edward Dudley. Paul Lynde portrayed Dr. Edward H. Dudley in the series. Upon completing his college education, Lynde relocated to New York City, taking various jobs while pursuing opportunities in the entertainment industry. His comedic debut took place at the renowned supper club No. 1 Fifth Avenue. Lynde made his Broadway entrance in the successful revue New Faces of 1952, sharing the stage with emerging talents like Eartha Kitt, Robert Clary, Alice Ghostly, and Carol Lawrence. One of his memorable monologues from the revue, titled Trip of the Month Club, humorously recounts a safari journey in Africa with his late wife. The revue was later filmed and released as New Faces in 1954. Despite his humorous and extravagant television persona, Lynn's personal life and sexual orientation remained largely undisclosed or unexplored in the media during his lifetime. According to an essay on the Biography Channel's website, entertainment reporters in the 1970s generally refrained from delving into the private lives of entertainers primarily recognized for their roles in game shows. On January 10, 1982, concerns arose when Lynn failed to attend a birthday event. Worried, Lynn's friend, actor-model Paul Barisi, and another companion, actor Dean Dittman, attempted to contact Lynn by phone and visited his residence in Beverly Hills, California. After receiving no response, Barisi entered Lynn's home through a side entrance and discovered Lynn deceased in his bed during the early hours of January 11, 1982. Lynn was 55 years old. John Carradine as Mr. Gateman. John Carradine portrayed Mr. Gateman, Herman's superior at the funeral parlor. Carradine's initial film credit was Tolerable David, 1930, although he asserted that he appeared in 70 films before receiving recognition. Carradine asserted that he auditioned for the lead role in Dracula, alongside established actors such as Conrad Veidt, William Courtenay, Paul Mooney, and Ian Keith. But historical evidence does not corroborate this claim. The role ultimately went to Bela Lugosi. Carradine entered matrimony on 4 occasions. He wed his first spouse, Ardennell Abigail McCool, January 25, 1911, January 26, 1989, in 1935. She bore Bruce and David, with John adopting Bruce, Ardennell's child, from a prior union. Initially desiring a large family, Carradine learned, per his son David's autobiography, that Ardennell had undergone multiple coat hanger abortions without his awareness, resulting in her inability to carry a pregnancy to term. Despite Ardennell, Carradine initiating divorce proceedings after 3 years of marriage, the couple remained legally united for an additional 5 years. By the late 1980s, Carradine had largely withdrawn from active work due to debilitating rheumatoid arthritis. He passed away from heart and kidney failure at Fada Benefratelli Hospital in Milan, Italy, on November 27, 1988, at the age of 82. Brian O'Byrne as Uriah. Brian O'Byrne portrayed Uriah, Calvin, and another colleague at the funeral parlor. Before embarking on an acting career, O'Byrne served in the United States Army and later worked as an elementary school educator. He relocated to New York City to pursue his passion for acting, ultimately achieving success by starring alongside actress Vivien Leigh in the Broadway production of Duel of Angels during the late 1950s. Retiring from acting in the 1990s, O'Byrne devoted his time to caring for his ailing sister, Henrietta Boyea. Following retirement, he settled in Pacifica, California, where he resided for the final 16 years of his life. O'Byrne passed away on December 4, 2009, in Pacifica, California, at the age of 78. Harvey Corman as Dr. Leinbach. From 1964 to 1966, he made appearances in 3 consecutive years on the CBS sitcom The Munsters. The debut of the Carol Burnett Show in 1967 brought Corman his greatest fame. He starred alongside Carol Burnett, Vicki Lawrence, and Tim Conway. Throughout his 10-year tenure on the program, he garnered 6 Primetime Emmy Award nominations, winning 4 times in 1969, 1971, 1972, and 1974. In 1978, he featured in the CBS Star Wars Holiday Special, adding humor to 3 variety segments. A skit set in a cantina with B. Arthur, where he portrayed a barfly who imbibes through a hole in the top of his head, another as Chef Gourmayanda, a 4-armed spoof of Julia Child, and one as a malfunctioning Amorphian android in an instructional video. Corman tied the knot with Donna Ehlert from 1960 to 1977, and they had 2 offspring, Maria and Christopher Corman. In 1982, he wed Deborah Corman and remained married to her until his passing in 2008. They welcomed 2 daughters together, Kate and Laura Corman. Corman passed away at the age of 81 on May 29, 2008, at UCLA Medical Center due to complications arising from a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm he had experienced 4 months earlier. He was laid to rest at Santa Monica's Woodlawn Cemetery. Pat Priest as Marilyn Munster. Pat Priest portrayed Marilyn Munster in the series. In the early stages of her career, Priest worked as both a singer and actress on local television stations, including WTTG in Washington, D.C. During the late 1950s, she graced the stage in productions like Bus Stop and The Tender Trap. The studio opted to replace Priest with Debbie Watson, who was 12 years younger than Priest, for the role of Marilyn Munster in the 1966 feature Munster Go Home. Instead of retaining Priest, the studio chose Watson due to her contractual obligations and plans to groom her into a film star. Following the conclusion of the series, Priest made guest appearances on various television shows such as Bewitched, Perry Mason, Death Valley Days, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, where she portrayed Sue Ann Nivens' underappreciated younger sister. Priest retired from acting during the 1980s, but continues to make appearances at nostalgic conventions and Munsters reunions across the country. Previously, she restored and sold homes in Idaho, where she has resided for over 2 decades. Priest has been married twice and has 2 sons. In 2001, she received a diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, completing maintenance treatments at St. Luke's Mountain State's Tumor Institute, and later achieving remission. John Fiedler as Warren Bloom. John Fiedler portrayed Warren Bloom in the series. Following his discharge from the Navy, Fiedler relocated to Manhattan, New York City, where he engaged in activities at the neighborhood playhouse. Among his peers were Tony Randall, James Doohan, Leslie Nielsen, Richard Boone, and Joanne Woodward. He assumed the role of Homer Brown on the radio comedy The Aldrich Family, depicted Cadet Alfie Higgins on the 1950s TV show Tom Corbett, Space Cadet, and made his cinematic debut in 1957 as Juror No. 2 in 12 Angry Men. Fiedler was part of the original cast of the Broadway production A Raisin in the Sun, portraying Housing Committee Representative Lindner, a character he also played in both the 1961 film adaptation and the 1989 TV rendition. His credits also include appearances in the film The Odd Couple, 1968, as poker player Vinny, as well as in the TV series adaptation The Odd Couple, where he was invited by his friend Jack Klugman to portray the manager of a highly secured building and a stern owner of a Hollywood dog. Additionally, he featured in the movies Harper Valley PTA, 1978, and The Cannonball Run, 1981. Fiedler passed away from cancer on June 25, 2005, at the age of 80, in Englewood, New Jersey, at the Lillian Booth Actors Home, a facility for retired performers supported by the Actors Fund of America. He was cremated, and his ashes were scattered on Long Island, New York. Butch Patrick as Eddie Munster. The youngest member of the family, who somehow turns out to be a werewolf despite having a father resembling Frankenstein and a mother who's a vampire. When asked about how he got the role of Eddie, Patrick remembered, "I had quite a bit of experience, but perhaps it was because my fangs were my actual teeth. Even when I closed my mouth, they protruded." In 1961, he made his debut on television, and shortly after, he landed his first regular role on the TV series The Real McCoys in 1963. Then came his success with the Munsters when he was just around 11 years old. The 70s brought more adventures for Butch, including a role in the lively show Sid and Marty Krofft's Saturday morning children's program Lidsville. Butch Patrick recorded a pop song inspired by the Munsters theme in the early 80s titled Whatever Happened to Eddie as part of Eddie and the Monsters. In 2011, Butch revealed that he had been diagnosed with prostate cancer, but at 70 years old, he's doing well today. After struggling with substance abuse issues, he's now clean and sober and is still actively pursuing his acting career primarily in independent films or short productions. Keep going, Butch. There you have it. It's astonishing to think that this fantastic, imagination-rich series lasted merely for 2 seasons, comprising a total of 70 episodes. Who stood out as your preferred character in the series? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We're eager to hear from you.